My name is Laura Hayner, and I'm a Minnesota resident and a Minneapolis-based pilot for Delta Airlines.
Miss Hayner, is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell me what a typical work week looks like for you as a stewardess? How does...
I'm a first officer for Delta.
Pardon me?
I'm a pilot for Delta.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know why I said that. I'm so sorry.
So, Amanda, I really want your take on this, but I have to say a couple things up front. First of all, as a pilot, I will be the first to say that the toughest job on an airplane is that of a flight attendant, right? Oh. But it's not as if this GOP lawmaker was complimenting this witness.
I don't think so.
He was demoting her, and we all know it. And it happens everywhere. It's not just the Republican Party, but I think it is becoming just increasingly apparent that the Republican Party in this country, in this age, wants to put women back in their place.
Absolutely. It is something that is done both intentionally and not. And whether this was intentional or not, it has the purpose and it serves the purpose of saying women have very specific roles, and those roles don't include leadership, and they don't include having a voice in any industry or in our democracy. And any expertise they might have, we are going to doubt.
My wife, Anne Marie, pointed this out as well. The assumption is that the role of women is a service role. And again, flight attendants do something incredible. She wasn't actually referred to as a flight attendant. She was referred to as a stewardess. I think we got rid of that term in the 50s. But the idea is that this witness must be here to talk about a service role. And let's get the lady's perspective, right?
That's exactly right. We assume that any job that involves any kind of caring whatsoever has to be done by a woman. And this also means this puts a lot on women, that we expect them to do any kind of caring role, which means caring for our children. It means teaching our children. It means nursing. It means healthcare. It means being a flight attendant. Any care job whatsoever, it must be a woman, which puts that is a lot of work, ladies. I think I've already described over half of our economy right there. It's a big chunk of our economy, right? But then what we also don't realize is that men are listening. And it also tells men that's not your role. Your role is not as a flight attendant. Your role is not to care for children. Forget the fact that you have the title dad. You're still not supposed to care for children. You're not supposed to care for children in school, which means a lot of kindergartners don't have access to male role models. It means you're not supposed to be a nurse, which means a lot of male patients don't have access to a male nurse should they want a male nurse.
If there's a silver lining in this, tell me if you have the same read. It's that when that GOP lawmaker was corrected, you could just tell that he knew he had effed up. You could see the look all over his face. Oh my God, this is going to go viral. The one realization that I don't think it dawned on him was that I deserve it.
Oh, no, I think he thinks it was a mistake. Like, oh, gee, golly, I'm just a grandpa here. And it was just a mistake that I made. And, oops. No harm, no foul, except for there was harm and there is a foul. And I don't think we're going to hear him clearly state that there are a lot of women pilots out there and they are great pilots, right? And we should recognize the work that they do for us outside of, this narrow view of what I thought women can do in our society.
How does this tie into the overall effort, so apparent these days, by the GOP to restrict not just the rights of women, but the status of women, the role of women in society?
It fits right into their playbook, right? Their playbook is you should be at home in a kitchen like Katie Britt, and you should be, following along with whatever their talking points are about how women should be caring for children and having children. And that's really it. And they're going to make sure that we are in our place in the kitchen barefoot with children by taking away birth control, by taking away any type of choice we have in our reproductive systems, and by forcing us to have children, even if it means that we have to die in the process.
You brought it up, and I know we're a little behind the 8 ball, but I have been dying to talk to you about Katie Britt
Katie.
and the State of the Union response. Please let her have it.
Oh, I mean, the GOP intentionally used every stereotype out there. This was not a slip of, oops, we think women belong in the kitchen. This was an intentional. They came out and said, Tuberville came out and said, we picked Katie Britt because she's a housewife and we wanted her in the kitchen, right?
Wait, hold that. I'm gonna
ridiculous.
You're not exaggerating. I'm going to roll that clip. He said, we picked her. She is the youngest female senator, elected to the U.S. Senate, first from the state of Alabama, and her positioning was as a housewife. That label itself applied by Tommy Tuberville. Here's the clip.
Before we let you go, your fellow Senator Katie Britt gave the GOP response last night. She's getting some interesting reviews. Some didn't like the fact she was in her kitchen table. Of course, the left will find a criticism about any conservative woman, in my opinion. How do you think she did? Some chatter was that she may have been on a short list and being eyed by Trump as a potential VP. Katie Britt's performance last night, in your opinion, Senator Tuberville?
Yeah. Well, considering the circumstances, I thought she did very well. And she's a mom. She's a housewife. She's around people in a young age. And if you just see what the left is doing, they're going after families. They're going after separating families, taking the dad out of the family. They're going after kids in the schools, not allowing them to learn to read, write, and do arithmetic. They're being indoctrinated in all these pronouns and all these books that are in the library about sexuality. I thought Katie was a very good choice. She did a very good job. It's a hard job to do, to come out and criticize, but she had one point to make. She didn't have enough time to go and, criticize everything Joe Biden had talked about. She had the narrative of talking about family, and that's what Republicans are for. Democrats are against family. So I thought it was a good narrative. I thought Katie did a good job. And again, it's very hard to do. And unfortunately, people are going to criticize people that do anything in public.
Back to you, Amanda. You're not exaggerating.
Not at all.
If there is a tragic aspect of the story, it's that probably a dozen men paid by consulting firms around Katie Britt said, this is a great idea.
It's a great idea.
She has agency too. She deserves as much of the blame for having gone along with it. She's a U.S. senator. I'm not absolving her either, but back to you.
No, I mean, and of all the senators you could choose, they chose one from Alabama, where you no longer have the right to IVF, where they're actually taking away the rights of people to have children who want children. It's one of the most, things that we agree on the most in this country right now is that we should probably have access to IVF, right? Which makes it pretty clear that just because an egg and a sperm come together, like that's not, someone that, needs child support at this point right now, right? It is just very clear, right? So they pick Katie Britt from Alabama, where they're banning IVF. She says really nothing about that and nothing about the rights that they want to take from women. Instead, it's this, rather than the conversations people are actually having in kitchens, they're conversations about immigration and they're conversations about human trafficking that happened during the Bush administration. It is just so far-fetched from what actually happens in any kitchen, let alone no kitchen actually looks like that. You should see my kitchen right now. It does not look like that.
It's Ken Harbaugh on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm about to share with you an exclusive trailer for the award-winning documentary Against All Enemies. The film is about the threats to democracy posed by violent extremist groups aligned with powerful political forces. I've spent the past 3 years working on this with an amazing team of filmmakers. We want Americans to understand the danger our democracy faces in this election year. Against All Enemies has racked up awards around the world and has had an incredibly successful run in Europe. It premieres in the US on March 29th in select theaters and on major streaming platforms. I hope you'll watch it and review it and tell your friends about it. Here's the trailer for Against All Enemies.
3, 2, 1, go. Today, domestic terrorism is the greatest terrorist threat facing the United States.
How did I end up on one side of that door? And my fellow veterans, how did they end up on the other side of that door?
If you're armed, then you're prepared to defend your family. And if you're not armed, you're dog meat.
The issue is that the people that we are identifying as extremists, they're identifying as patriots or freedom fighters. It almost sounds like I'm talking about terrorism right now.
I hope that people are scared, because being scared motivates people.
This is how countries fall apart.
Oh my God!
I could see a civil war. And this fight that's far from over, and it may never be over.
I, Lisa Fon,
Do solemnly swear
The Constitution of the United States.
against all
enemies,
Foreign and domestic.
so help me God.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
I was hoping for a viral phenomenon. My wife wouldn't let me do it, but pictures of real kitchens, right?
Oh
There
my
are dishes
gosh.
piled to the ceiling. There is homework everywhere. There, coffee stains on the homework. That was not a real kitchen. It actually looked like a green
No.
screen.
It did. I thought maybe she was in like a Home Depot, where they have like all the fake kitchens that you can like test out. I think she might have been in one of those.
I'm glad you made the link between this Republican representative's demeaning of this Delta first officer pilot and Katie Britt, because it's all of a piece. It's this box the Republicans have put themselves into, where they are talking down to women, where their exemplar of what a woman should be subordinates her role as a U.S. senator and goes literally back into the kitchen to deliver her response. How are the listeners of the Suburban Women Problem podcast, which you co-host, responding to this? How are the people in your orbit responding to this?
I mean, right now what we're saying is this is just laughable. It's ridiculous. But what we really need to pay attention to is it is scary. This is them using an outdated stereotype, and we are laughing at how outdated it is. But what we don't realize is that this is how they're trying to push their agenda. And while we're all laughing at it, we need to realize that they are trying to cement a stereotype of women this way, and as women as flight attendants, so that we will think of women in one way and we will discount them. And I think we should also be clear, the women who are in the Republican Party, and that goes for Katie Britt and it goes for all the women of Fox News, right? We're not actually valuing their perspectives and opinions. We have rooms full of men saying like, this is what we think women are. And they don't realize that diversity is a strength, and that if they actually listen to the real opinions of what women are really talking about, they might actually come closer to policies women actually want.
And I would submit that a lot of the women put front and center to deliver this message, their life stories fly in the face of that message. Their success in a lot of ways has depended upon defying those stereotypes. And yet they get too prominent, and the men around them say, okay, now we need you to deliver a response to the president of the United States from your kitchen.
I mean, it's ridiculous to hear even Tuberville call her a housewife, which generally means someone who does not get paid at all for the work that she does, right? But she is not a housewife because she clearly gets paid for her job as a senator, right? So to see these things contrasted of basically, Katie Britt, we want you to go play a housewife. And what you saw was Katie Britt playing a housewife, basically to the level of a soap opera. I mean, the acting was just terrible. Even when Scarlett Johansson tried to act it, I was like, oh, hon, your acting is too good. Like, you still seem kind of like a real person. Like, I don't think you could handle this, right? This is a Katie Britt level of terrible acting. And when you have to get a woman to act like a housewife just to try and get a few votes for women to think for things that they naturally don't want to vote for, I mean, talk about being over your skis. Like, come on.
Yeah. All right. I want to end. Thank you, Amanda. I want to end with this clip of a voter in Alabama. Full disclosure, I spent my formative years in Alabama. I understand the state. I graduated from high school there. This voter in Alabama calls Katie Britt out, and it is just chef's kiss, pun intended. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Ken.
As if things could get worse for Katie Britt, Tommy Tuberville has now come out and said that her performance was good and she was picked as a housewife. Katie Britt is not a housewife. She's a United States Senator. She worked for Senator Shelby. She is the first woman ever to be elected to the Senate from the state of Alabama. But to them, she is a performative housewife. You want us to believe that this party supports women in the workplace and women in politics. They put you in a kitchen to give the Republican rebuttal to a State of the Union address in front of the entire country from a kitchen. What's crazy is I know a lot of people that knew you growing up, Katie, a lot of people that danced with you. You weren't always like this. I don't know what you were, but according to people who know you, you damn sure weren't a trad wife Handmaid's Tale remake. I guess I kind of thought of you as like a Caitlin Collins, who we know is conservative. I mean, we were raised in Alabama. We all have some conservative values in us, but those of us who can think for ourselves could see right through you. You're the youngest woman ever elected to the United States Senate. And instead of boasting about that as an accomplishment for yourself, you let them make you use it as a dig at Joe Biden from your kitchen. You said Joe Biden's out of touch. You think the border is the biggest issue for women in Alabama. Bless your heart. You are out of touch.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.